Creep from the Deep, Chapter 12. Sheena jumped up from her seat and stumbled to the back of the sub. "I'm opening the hatch," she said. She was already halfway up the ladder. "We can see better up there." Are you sure it's a good idea?" I called. Too late. I heard the hatch lid pop. The sounds grew louder. Sheena hoisted herself to the top. The sub rocked and bobbed. The wind roared. "Can you see the Cassandra?" I shouted. She didn't answer. I don't think she could hear me. Finally, she lowered herself one rung and bent her head toward me. To my surprise, she had a smile on her face. "An island!" she cried. "Billy, there's an island out there." "How close?" I shouted. "Can we swim to it?" "We have to," she cried. "The ocean is calm. We can make it if we take our time." We should have worn our swimsuits, I thought. We were in jeans and t-shirts, but, of course, we didn't know we'd have to leave the sub. A large fish slid past the porthole. I imagined a school of killer sharks circling us, snapping their jaws hungrily. I pictured the zombie pirates rising up from the ocean bottom and grabbing us. "No, Billy, don't think about sharks or zombies." I heard a splash. I turned and gazed up the empty hatch. Sheena was already in the water. "Courage," I whispered. "That's the official slogan of the undersea mutant." I searched the control panel. I found a lever marked anchor. I pulled the lever down and heard a loud buzz. Some kind of electric anchor. At least the sub would be here, ready for our return. I pulled myself up to the top of the hatch. Shielding my eyes with one hand, I squinted into the distance. Yes, a long yellow sand island. I could see some trees near the shore. "Come on, Billy, jump," Sheena called. She floated on her back alongside the sub. "Coming," I shouted. I tried to steady myself over the edge of the hatch, but my legs trembled so hard I could barely stand. "Jump," Sheena yelled. "What are you waiting for?" Okay, I muttered. I took a deep breath, raised both arms above my head, and leaped. "Ow!" I screamed as I hit the hatch lid. My leg scraped along the metal edge. Sharp pain shot up my left side. I did a hard belly flop into the water. The cold rushed over me. My leg throbbed with pain. Splashing wildly, I raised my head. I grabbed my aching leg. "Sheena," I called. A wave washed over me. I shook it off and pulled myself up. "Sheena, help me. I can't swim. I think I broke my leg." Chapter 13. Sheena quickly swam over to me. "What happened?" "I banged my leg on the hatch," I moaned, ducking under a high wave. "It's the same leg the shark bit last summer. It really hurts. I think maybe—" "Let me see," Sheena said. She grabbed my leg and twisted it. "Hey, stop," I screamed. "It bends at the knee," she said. "It's not broken." "Since when are you an expert on legs?" I cried. But she didn't hear me. She was already swimming toward the island with slow, steady strokes. I had no choice. I had to swim after her. I ignored the pain, lowered my head to the water, and began doing my famous breaststroke. "Courage," I whispered again, just a reminder to myself. The water was cold, and the waves were pulling against us. I'm a good swimmer, but halfway to the island, my arms started to ache. My cut leg throbbed. I sucked in breath after breath and forced myself through the strong current. I don't know how long it took to reach the island. Maybe half an hour. It seemed a lot longer. I fell onto the sandy shore, shivering, gasping for air. My chest felt ready to explode. I lay on my stomach, my head resting on the soft sand, breathing, just breathing. When I finally looked up, I saw Sheena leaning against the curved trunk of a palm tree in a thick clump of ferns. With a groan, I pulled myself to my feet. My waterlogged jeans and t-shirt hung heavily against my body. I took a step and let out a cry. "Ow, my leg." I raised the knee and tested the leg a few times. It moved okay, but it hurt each time I bent it. I limped a few feet toward my sister, groaning with each step. "Here," Sheena said. "This just washed ashore. Maybe you can lean on it. Use it as a cane." She held up a long stick. I hobbled over to her and grabbed it. It was a long piece of bleached driftwood, the perfect size. "Don't call it a cane," I told her. "It's the mutant's golden staff of invincibility. It was handed down to me by the Eternals." She rolled her eyes. "Whatever." I tried the driftwood cane out. Leaning on it, I could get around pretty good. I glanced around the island. A narrow strip of yellow sand formed the beach. Beyond the beach, I saw clumps of tall grass and ferns. A thick cluster of palm trees hid the rest of the land from view. Strange, I thought. No seagulls on the shore. No birds chirping in the trees. What a weird, dead silence. Come on, let's explore. Sheena's voice cut into my creepy thoughts. Billy, can you walk? No problem, I said, leaning on the cane, followed her along the shoreline. Our sandals crunched on the soft sand. We passed a wide patch of tall grass blowing one way, then the other. Oh, wow, Sheena stopped and raised her arm to block me. I don't believe it, she cried. She stared wide-eyed at the sand. I followed her gaze and gasped. Footprints. They led from the water across the sand into the trees. Dr. D, I cried. He made it to shore. Without another word, we began following the footprints. Sheena trotted over the sand. I limped after her as fast as I could, leaning on the driftwood stick. The footprints led along a narrow path that twisted through a thick grove of palm trees. Tall reeds and ropey vines lined both sides of the path. We had to step over fat gray roots that poked up like giant snakes from the sand. I stopped to rest my leg for a moment. Dr. D, I shouted, cupping my hands around my mouth. Uncle George, can you hear me? Are you here? No answer. My eyes on the footprints, I trotted after Sheena. Hey! I let out a sharp cry and stopped beside her. We both stared through an opening between lush fern leaves, stared at a man in a long black cloak with a hood pulled over his head. Was it Dr. D? It had to be. Dr. D, it's us, Sheena cried. Why didn't he turn around? I pushed the fern leaves out of the way with the stick. Then we both burst through, running over the sand to our uncle. Oh, I gasped and stopped short. Sheena grabbed my arm, and we both opened our mouths in screams of horror. Chapter 14. The stick fell from my hand. I grabbed it back and raised it in front of me. Could I use it to defend myself? I didn't need it. The hooded figure in front of us wasn't going to attack. It leaned against a tree, unmoving. A skeleton. I let out a groan. Oh, sick. The long cloak was covered in crawling worms and insects. Bugs climbed in and out of the skeleton's toothless mouth. Under the cloak, I saw a rotting shirt. On the shirt's pocket, I saw a red skull and crossbones. A pirate, I whispered. But it's impossible, Sheena said in a whisper. These footprints. Billy, look at them. They're fresh. I glanced down at the sand. Yes, fresh footprints, still deep in the sand. No way, I murmured. I watched the fat brown worms slither around the grinning skull. A chill made my whole body shake. I couldn't take my eyes off that ugly face. Billy, didn't you hear me? Let's go, Sheena shouted. I shook my head hard, trying to clear my mind, trying to shake away my panic. Sheena grabbed my hand and pulled me along a twisting path. We hurried through the trees and vines back to the beach. I struggled to keep up with her, leaning on the stick. The sun was now a red ball, low over the water. The late afternoon light turned the ocean red and purple, a pretty sight, but there was no way we could enjoy it. Stranded on a tiny island with a disgusting dead pirate, I muttered. Dr. D is gone, and we have no way to get home. Could it get any worse than this? Yes, it could, Sheena replied in a whisper. I think it just did, and she pointed to the sand in front of us. Chapter 15. I held my breath and followed her gaze. Oh no. I saw at least a dozen sets of fresh footprints in the sand. They all lead from the water, Sheena said softly. They cross the beach and go into the trees. They are skeleton footprints, I said. See? Bone prints. We stared at them, then at each other. The dead pirates, Sheena cried. It must be them, the pirates who smashed their hands and fists on the sub. She shuddered. We woke them up, Billy. Don't you see? When we crashed into their ship, we woke them up, and now they followed us here. My mind spun. We have to find a hiding place, I said, somewhere safe, where we can try to think. Away from this beach, Sheena said, away from these footprints. I stared at the bony footprints pressed into the sand. Once again, my imagination took off. I pictured the dead pirates staggering out of the waves. I could see them shaking water off their rotted clothes, walking stiffly on the sand, their bones creaking and cracking and grinding, searching blindly for Sheena and me. We trotted over the sand. My leg felt better, but I used the long driftwood stick to help pull myself along. Sheena, look! I pointed to a tall pile of gray rocks at the far end of the beach. There might be caves, I said, or a good hiding place behind the rocks. Let's check it out, Sheena said. We took 2 or 3 steps. Whoa! I let out a startled cry as the sand gave way beneath me. My arms shot up in the air as I started to slide. I was sliding down, falling, sliding, falling, sliding. Sand flew all around me, a deep hole, some kind of sand pit. My hands grabbed at the sides, but the sand flew through my fingers. Sand clung to my wet clothes, covered my hair, my face, my eyes. Sliding, falling, sliding. We're being buried alive, I screamed. Chapter 16. I landed hard on my feet. Ow! Pain shot up my body. My legs gave way and I fell hard onto my butt. Brushing sand off my face, out of my eyes, I started to choke. I saw Sheena drop onto the sand beside me. She began coughing and sputtering, shaking herself violently, throwing off sand. I spit out a glob of wet sand. The sour, gritty feeling on my tongue made my stomach heave. I took a deep breath and held it. We're alive, Sheena muttered, furiously brushing sand from her hair. I picked lumps of sand from my nostrils. I spit again. Then I gazed up. The pit was deep. I could see just a sliver of sky at the top. I used the stick to pull myself to my feet. Bending over, I brushed the wet sand off my t-shirt and jeans. It's sticky, I said, and smelly. Maybe it's a trap, Sheena said. The pirates set this sand trap. They meant to capture us. No way, I said. The pirates just got here, remember? They didn't have time to dig this deep hole. Well, somebody made it, Sheena said. She stared up to the top. Maybe we can climb out. She dug both hands into the sand wall and tried to pull herself up. The soft sand gave way and she slid back down. I tried next, digging my hands deep into the sticky wet sand. Hey, the sand crumbled and I toppled onto my back. It's too soft, Sheena said. We can't get a good grip. Maybe the stick, I said. I shoved the stick into the pit wall high above my head. Then, holding onto it tightly, I tried to hoist myself up. No, the sand collapsed on me. I came tumbling back down onto my knees. The stick fell and nearly hit me on the head. We didn't give up. We kept trying. I gave Sheena a boost. She climbed onto my shoulders, her legs wrapped around my neck, nearly choking me. She kicked sand into my face. Get off, I cried. You're too heavy. This won't work. We have to try, she said. We don't want to be trapped down here forever. With a groan, I started to push her up the sand wall. But I stopped when I heard sounds above us, voices from the beach. Oh! With a startled cry, Sheena jumped off me. She pressed her back against the sand. I froze and listened to the voices, men's voices. And as they came closer, I could hear the words they were chanting deep and low, the same words over and over in a frightening, slow rhythm. The bones they creak, the bones they creep. The men come alive in the briny deep. You ended our death, you ended our sleep. The men come alive in the briny deep. So come with us, come with the men. Come meet your fate with Captain Ben. Chapter 17. Sheena covered her ears. I peered up at the top of the pit. The chanting grew louder. The voices surrounded us, closer, closer, until they were right above our heads. You ended our death, you ended our sleep. The men come alive in the briny deep. So come with us, come with the men. Come meet your fate with Captain Ben. Sheena and I pressed ourselves tightly against the pit wall. We tried to burrow into the sand, but there was no place to hide. I looked up and saw the grinning heads staring down at us from all around the top of the pit. My legs were trembling. I could feel my heart racing. I counted more than a dozen of them. Most were grinning skeletons wearing plain woolen shirts and trousers or dark jackets and ruffled shirts. Their clothes were stained, and the shredded, rotten cloth barely covered their bones. Even more horrifying, 3 of them had faces. Bloated, distorted faces swollen from the water, with cheeks sagging to their shoulders and eye sockets stretched too big to hold their eyes. Their blubbery white lips moved like fat maggots. Scraggly clumps of long hair fell over the sides of their heads. Snails and clamshells clung to their scalps. The pirates poked their heads over the pit and continued to chant. Their voices echoed off their bony rib cages. You ended our death, you ended our sleep. The men come alive in the briny deep. What do you want? Sheena screamed up at them. Leave us alone. But they reached down for us, reached with long, bony hands. The fingers curled and uncurled like snakes. Some of the hands had knobs of skin attached, patches of decayed green skin on the palms and fingers. They smelled so putrid, like milk that's been sour for months. The smell floated down over us. I started to choke. I could taste it on my tongue. They lowered a rope ladder into the pit. Sheena and I had no choice. We didn't want to spend the rest of our lives down there. I grabbed the rope and struggled to climb. When I neared the top, hard, bony hands wrapped around my shoulders, then grabbed me under the arms, and with surprising strength hoisted me out of the pit. The pirate set me down hard on the sand. He wore a three-cornered hat covered in slime. Long purple worms crawled over the brim. He was a skeleton, except he had half a face. Skin hung from the right side of his face and flapped against the cheekbone. He had a dark mustache, just half a mustache, which he kept twirling as he stared at me with one empty eye socket and one blue eye. "Let go of me," Sheena screamed. It took 2 pirates to drag her off the ladder and set her on the ground. "Let us go. Leave us alone," she cried. Moving stiffly, their bones cracking, they formed a circle around us. A tall pirate with sagging, bluish skin scratched his scraggly hair, and it came off in his hand. "Oh, sick," I moaned. Their bones clattered. The pirates moved in closer, tightening the circle. No way we could make a run for it. "What do you want?" Sheena shouted. "Let us go. We didn't do anything to you." The pirate with half a face started to grunt. His ugly head bobbed up and down on his rotted shoulders. His arms hanging limply at their sides, the circle of dead pirates began moving around us, slowly at first, then faster, stepping stiffly, their eyes locked on us. I groaned in horror as one of the pirates lost a bony foot. It fell off his leg, but he didn't stop. He limped on, keeping the circle moving, spinning around us, a circle of ghastly dead men. And then suddenly the circle opened. The pirate with half a face stepped aside, the other pirates backed away, and I stared in shock as 2 men approached. A grinning pirate led the way. He wore a long black coat with gold buttons down the front and the gold stripes of a captain on the shoulders. He had a whole face, with a thin black mustache and a short black beard. He looked alive, except for the dead green eyes sunk deep in his head. He carried a crutch in one hand and limped toward us. As he approached, the pirate stood back in fear. Was this Captain Ben? And beside him, with the pirate's big hand grasping his shoulder, our uncle. "Billy, Sheena," Dr. D cried. "They got you, too." Chapter 18. "Dr. D," I shouted. I started to run to him, but 2 pirates leaped forward and held me back. Their bony fingers dug into my shoulders. They smelled like weak old vomit. Again, I had to hold my breath to keep from gagging. "Let me go," Sheena cried. She thrashed her arms and kicked, but 2 pirates held her tight. I stared angrily at the pirate captain. The dead eyes gazed back at me. They looked like soft eggs set deep in the sockets. He had a missing leg. He leaned heavily on his crutch. He dug the crutch into the sand and took a step forward. "Let go!" Sheena slammed her elbow into the pirate's open ribcage. The bones cracked loudly, but he didn't let go. Instead, he tightened a bony hand around her throat. "Don't struggle," Dr. D said. "They're too strong." "Oh, he smells so pukey," Sheena cried. She covered her mouth with her hand. Captain Ben tossed back his head and uttered a booming laugh. His voice sounded as if it came from down a deep tunnel. The laugh made all the pirates jerk straight up at attention. I watched one of the pirates pull a fat worm from his open nose hole. He studied it, then shoved it back in. "Uncle George," I cried, "how did you get here?" He shrugged. I don't really know, Billy." His white lab coat was covered in stains. His pants were torn at one knee. The left lens in his eyeglasses was cracked. "How long have you been here?" I asked. He shook his head. "It's not clear to me," he said. "It's all a blank. I'm sorry." "But what do these pirates want?" I asked. The pirate captain shoved Dr. D aside and limped up to Sheena and me. "Captain Ben asks the questions," he said in that low voice that thundered inside his chest. Captain Ben asks the questions, and he answers the questions. At these words, some of the skeletal pirates trembled and shook. Bones clacked and rattled. An eyeball hit the sand. Its owner moved to pick it up and accidentally stepped on it. Captain Ben turned from Sheena and me. An ugly grin spread over his face. "So he's your uncle, is he? Would you like to see your uncle survive?" he asked. "Would you like Captain Ben to let your uncle live?" So I was right. I was staring at Captain Ben One Leg, the legendary pirate, the evil pirate who had been dead for over 200 years. "Yes," I stammered, "of course we want Dr. D to live." "Aye, I'll bet," Captain Ben said. He grabbed Dr. D by the shoulder and slammed him into the trunk of a palm tree. Dr. D groaned and fell to his knees, grabbing his shoulder. Captain Ben laughed. "I like to watch a man bounce, don't you?" "No," Sheena screamed. "Stop it. Let us go." Captain Ben's grin faded. He scratched his black beard. "Careful, girl," he said. "Being dead for over 200 years has put Captain Ben in a very bad mood." "I don't care," Sheena shouted. "Let us go." "I'll not let any of ye go," he said, holding his wet-eyed stare on Sheena. "And ye'll not have your uncle back until you give me what's mine." I swallowed, thinking hard, my mind spinning. What did he mean? I whispered to Sheena, "What does he want? What does he think we have? His lost treasure?" "Are you looking for your treasure? We don't have it," Sheena shouted to the pirate captain. "We never saw it. We don't have your treasure." A scowl spread over Captain Ben's face. "You'll not have your uncle back," he repeated, "until you give me what is mine." "You have to believe us," I called to the pirate captain. "We don't have it." I raised my stick as if it were a sword. All around us the pirates tensed. They lifted their bony arms. I could tell they were preparing to fight. Captain Ben stared at the stick. "You've made your choice," he said through gritted teeth. "The wrong choice." He waved his hand in a signal to his men. "Take them," he said. "Show them what we call pirate mercy." With the rattle of bones, the dead pirates closed in on us. Chapter 19. "Run, kids," Dr. D shouted. "Don't worry about me." I spun away from him. The pirate with half a face stretched out his arms and tried to grab me. I ducked and darted right through his legs. Another pirate bumped up to me. His ruffled shirt, torn to shreds, revealed nothing but ribs underneath. He raised his hands, ready to fight. I swung the driftwood stick at him. It caught him in the chest. I heard his brittle ribs crack. He let out a muffled gurgle and staggered back. I took off running. My sandals pounded the sand. I turned away from the water and headed to the trees. Sheena, did she get away too? I didn't dare look back until I reached the thicket of palm trees. I ducked into the shade, grabbed a tree trunk, and held on. I rested against the smooth bark, trying to catch my breath. "Billy, don't stop," a hoarse voice said. Sheena, from behind another tree. "Look, they're coming for us," she pointed through the trees. The pirates were staggering and limping and lurching toward us. I pushed myself off the trunk and leaned on the driftwood stick. We both took off, dodging through the thick grove, pushing ferns and vines out of our path. I could hear the grunts and groans of the pirates as they chased after us. Did they really think we had Captain Ben's treasure? Did they think we hid it somewhere on the island? "Sheena, wait up," I called. I started to run, using the stick as a cane. Each step made my leg throb. "But the undersea mutant doesn't know the meaning of the word pain," I declared. Would the undersea mutant run away from a bunch of ugly dead pirates? Of course he would. Beneath the twisted palm trees, the ground became soft and covered with a blanket of mossy leaves and needles. The air grew cooler as I ran into deep shadows. Breathing hard, I caught up with my sister. Ducking our heads under low vines, we ran deeper and deeper into the trees. "Whoa, stop!" "What is it?" she asked breathlessly. I pointed to the ground. "That's not a vine, that's a snake." I squinted at it. Stretched out across the path, the snake was huge, at least 4 or 5 feet long. It had camouflaged itself, the same green-brown as the leaves on the ground. As we stared, it arched its body and raised its head, and without warning attacked, snapping its fangs. I shoved the stick in front of it. The snake's jaws clamped down on the driftwood. I didn't think. My fright just made me act. I swung the stick high with the snake clamped onto it. The snake fell off and whipped high into the air. I didn't see it come down, but I heard it smack palm tree leaves behind us. Sheena spun around as if expecting the snake to come slithering back to us. Wow, she murmured. Billy, that was awesome. They call me the Snake Whisperer, I said. She didn't laugh. Shh, listen. I heard the grumbling of the pirates, still following. They hadn't given up. They're close by, Sheena whispered. Maybe we can find those tall rocks, I said. They looked like a good hiding place. No! Sheena let out a cry as two men jumped out from the trees and blocked our path. You're not going anywhere, one of them said. Chapter 20. The men took a step toward us. Not going anywhere? Why not? I stammered. Because this is the end of the path, one of the men said. He smiled. A gold tooth gleamed in his mouth. You can't go any farther. I stared at them. They were probably in their 20s. They both had short, light brown hair and dark eyes. Their faces were tanned. The one with the gold tooth was tall and lanky, about a foot taller than the other. They wore khaki cargo pants and striped polo shirts. They had brown leather camera cases strapped around their necks. You don't look like pirates, I said. They squinted at us. Pirates? We're photographers, the shorter one said. He pulled a fat orange bug off my shoulder. I jumped back. Careful, I whispered to Sheena. This could be a trap. They overheard me. What kind of trap? The tall one said. The pirates. They're chasing us, Sheena said, glancing back along the path. The tall one smiled again, his gold tooth glowing. Is this some kind of kid's game? No, I said. It's real. Real pirates? You're joking. Tell us the truth, he said. How do we know we can trust you? Sheena demanded. Who are you? What are you doing here at the end of the path? Calm down, the tall one said. I told you, we're photographers. We're shooting little-known Caribbean areas. My name is Roger Baldry, his partner said, and this is Goldie Monroe. That's not his real name, but everyone calls him Goldie. You know, because of the tooth. Goldie grinned to show it off. On the other side of the trees, I heard low voices. I grabbed Sheena. We can't stay here. They're coming. I don't know who's chasing you, but you can follow me, Goldie said. He turned and started to push his way through the tall ferns. Raji pulled a blue baseball cap from his pockets. He placed it on his head and followed his friend. Sheena and I held back. Could we trust these men? Did we have a choice? I followed them into the trees. The sun was setting, the ground grew swampy, and I kept staring into the sand, on the lookout for more snakes. Sweat poured down my forehead. My clothes were drenched. We stepped out onto the beach. I took a deep breath of the cool ocean air. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my t-shirt. Roger and Goldie led us to a wall of gray rocks near the shore. Behind the rocks, I saw a small white motorboat bobbing in the water. Sheena and I leaned against the rocks, catching our breath. I peered around the side. No sign of the pirates. What are you two kids doing here? Roger asked, mopping his face with a red handkerchief. Who brought you to this island? Our uncle, I said. I mean, he didn't bring us. He disappeared. We thought maybe... Goldie squinted at me. Your uncle disappeared? Were you on a boat? A mini-sub, I said, but it stalled out. The pirates woke up. They came after us. I mean, they followed us here. Goldie put his hands on his shoulders. Take a breath, kid. Get some oxygen to your brain. You're not making any sense. Yes, he is, Sheena declared. Our uncle disappeared from our sub. Billy and I had to swim here, but we woke up Captain Ben's dead pirates. They followed us here, and... Roger's eyebrows went up. His mouth dropped open. Captain Ben? You mean Long Ben One Leg? Yes, of course, Sheena snapped. His men captured us, down the beach, she pointed. Captain Ben was there, I said, with our uncle, and he said we couldn't have Dr. D back until we gave him what belongs to him. He wants his treasure. Roger and Goldie studied us in silence. You're not making this up? Roger asked. I shook my head. No way. Then, Goldie murmured, rubbing his chin, then the legend is true. Yes, Sheena said impatiently. That's what we're trying to tell you. Do you have it? Goldie asked. Do you have his treasure? No, I said. We found Captain Ben's ship. We found the Scarlet Skull, but we didn't see any treasure. The two men looked excited. Roger's face reddened. Goldie studied us intently. The pirate ship. Where is it? He asked. It's sunk offshore, I said, tilted almost on its side on the bottom of the ocean. Goldie squinted at us. Did you really find that old wreck? People have been looking for it for over 200 years. Roger gripped my shoulders. Do you think you could find it again? He asked. They were both breathing hard. I could see their chests heaving up and down. Roger's face was bright red. That made me suspicious. Maybe Sheena and I had told them too much. Are you after the treasure? I asked. Before they could answer, I heard a clatter above us on the rocks. I looked up, in time to see two skeleton pirates come leaping down. Their long, tattered coats flew up behind them as they sailed down on us. They raised rusted swords. I grabbed Sheena and yanked her back. We fell onto our butts on the sand. The two dead pirates landed on their feet in front of Roger and Goldie. They swung their jagged swords at the two men and sliced off their heads.